What was that?
I think we're going to Israel.
To the Hague. There we go.
All right. Going to Israel. So, by the way, I was right. That's the most important thing in this section is last week when we were talking about the U.S. suspending its funding of UNRWA because of the allegations, which they haven't investigated, which were decreased from 12 people out of 30,000 to 4. That happened on the same day as the ICJ ruling came out.
Allegedly. I think your sources are Israeli news, so yeah. I'm going to question them.
It's the IDF has been telling me.
You might have been right.
But anyway, yeah, it is just such an atrocity that this is happening. And, I don't know. I kind of wanted to go start with the propaganda part of it. Right. Is that all right?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. I have been okay. So we keep being told that Biden thinks that, he's losing patience with Netanyahu. He's doing quiet diplomacy in the back room. And again, it is just such brazen dishonesty to act like he's upset about any of this as he bypasses Congress to send billions more to continue funding a genocide, as he defunds UNRWA, as he doesn't talk about Palestinian deaths.
And they're leaking stories to pacify both sides, to try to act like it gives cover to liberals who want to say, you know what can we do? Israel has a right to defend themselves, and we're not in charge of their purse strings and what they do. We literally are in charge of them. And if we weren't providing cover at the UN, the entire world collectively, every single country in the world would say, this is a fucking genocide. Stop. We're going to, at a minimum, not buy any of your products ever.
We vetoed a ceasefire, right? You can't have it both ways. And then the press keeps running interference for him. But I don't think that is working, but
it's not working at all.
Yeah, maybe just we both pressed this in the corporate media. I don't know. Is Anthony Blinken too nice? What are
this
you
one changed
about?
my mind. I was like, you know what? He's too nice. The guy that we are calling Butcher Blinken on the left, is he too nice?
Who wrote this piece? Drew Angerer. Or maybe he's I don't know. Anyway, that's appalling. There's nothing too nice about funding a genocide. It's amazing. And what is we have Miss Gillibrand here, Senator Gillibrand, insisting that Israel is minimizing civilian casualties and saying that pro-ceasefire lawmakers in Congress are misled by misinformation from TikTok and China and Russia and our other adversaries. So we're just blaming everything on, Mr. Putin's messengers
and kids that don't understand the problem because they're not the grown-ups in the room. That's the other spin we're getting a lot now. Meanwhile, the left is massively more informed than anyone else who's telling you that it's complicated, you don't understand it. They don't know anything.
Yeah. And children, kids on TikTok are actually getting more information out that's true, that's not being run through. We saw last week that CNN, it was revealed, it wasn't because they admitted it, right? Because it would be one thing if they said, listen, to get this footage, we have to funnel everything through the IDF who's going to censor us and approve whatever we put out there. They didn't offer that up. It was revealed about them that all of their pieces were being funneled through the IDF. Well, that's not journalism. Journalism is revealing secrets that people don't want to be out there. That's what journalism is. This
right. And that information should ruin a network, but it's so accepted that these people are doing propaganda that there's not even any more. Their level of pushback from the public didn't change a drop when they did that.
Not at all.
MSNBC rehired all the people that were doing propaganda for Hillary, who were corrupt as all fuck. They all got jobs a couple years later back with MSNBC, and now they're all just on the air like it's nothing.
You know, the problem is, because I don't know the exact stats, but their viewership has gone so far down, right? And all of the legacy media, all of it, like the New York Times, the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, the CNN, MSNBC, like their viewership is almost depleted. The problem is the people who do watch and read corporate media always show up to vote. That's a problem.
And the public that doesn't tune into much of this at all will suddenly tune in around election time because of the drama of the election and want to be involved. And then they will get, you know, CNN once in a while will do a real news story, but they won't do a real news story near the election on any of the politicians. But they will once in a while, too far out to matter.
Yeah.
I mean, they told us that Biden was kooky and old and not mentally fit a million times.
2019. Yeah.
But I mean, we'll save it for the 2024 section, but we're starting to get some of that because the truth is so obvious that like their viewership right now is the few people that have been uninformed enough to buy their propaganda.
Right.
Like it's down to them, and they have to keep this illusion that they're an honest media up for that sliver of audience. They're not growing their audience. So they're hanging on to these people.
Yeah. It's, I mean, honestly, there is no way that after the New York Times helped Bush lie us into the Iraq war, that they should have continued to be considered, you know, the gray lady and the sort of like beacon of journalism by the people who should know better. Like plenty of people, CNN staff say network's pro-Israel slant amounts to journalistic malpractice. That, however, was not the worst. There were a slew of headlines this past week. The Wall Street Journal, Chicago votes for Hamas. Mayor Brandon Johnson supports a ceasefire in Gaza, not Chicago. So it was a way of getting a dig in, like a racial dig in there also.
Like, what are they? Wall Street Journal this week was just insane about their propaganda pieces. Like, this one really set the whole internet off. But I mean, welcome to Dearborn, America's jihad capital. So this is because Biden's going to lose Michigan because they have a large Arab community there. That's it. Muslim and Arab community. And he's going to lose it. It's a swing state that he must win. It's already lost. So now you're labeling the state a jihad. Like,
yeah. And that all Palestinians are Hamas and they're all terrorists. And so if you support a ceasefire, you are siding with Hamas. And that has been, you know, I mean, that's been a project that's been going on for 75 years, right? More than that, it's been going on for centuries, where brown people bad, white people good, and otherizing them, and people who are fighting for their liberation are always marked as terrorists, and the occupiers, you know, to the victor go the spoils, and we get to write history and all of that. But it was really pretty profound this week. Thomas Friedman, Understanding the Middle East Through the Animal Kingdom. Is there a better description of Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and Iraq today? They are the caterpillars. The Islamic Revolution Guard Corps is the wasp. The Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Kataib Hezbollah are the eggs that hatch inside the host, Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and Iraq, and eat it from the inside out. We have no counter strategy that safely and efficiently kills the wasp without setting fire to the whole jungle. I mean, that is Nazi speak. They are 100%. Vermin, they are roaches, they are infesting the world.
It's so fucking gross and obvious that you would think they wouldn't even be allowed to write it, but they're just going nuts all week with article after article like this.
And it's so bad that the mayor of Dearborn, whom we showed before, and I really do, I'm sure most of you have seen these much longer clips. He's so beautifully able to handle the thing that they keep throwing at him, which so many liberals say, which is, do you really think Trump would be any better? Don't you think Trump would be even worse? Like, I don't know, a worse genocide. He would kill 102 of your family members instead of 100. Like, what are they saying? And he really handles them so well by saying, like, it's not, stop putting the blame on me. It is the politician's fault. He's got to appeal to us and do something for us. But
if you had Hitler and another guy who condoned Hitler's policies, and those are the two options, do you vote for the lesser Hitler? That's what it always comes down to with these people. Yeah, Trump will be worse. So you got to vote for the 98% Hitler. You know,
I mean, they all love Bush now. They love George W. They hate Nader, but they love George W. It's the fucking craziest disconnect. But it's so bad that so this is Mayor Hamoud, effective immediately, Dearborn Police will ramp up its presence across all places of worship and major infrastructure points. This is a direct result of the inflammatory Wall Street Journal opinion piece that has led to an alarming increase in bigoted and Islamophobic rhetoric online targeting the city of Dearborn. Stay vigilant. I mean, that is a form of terrorism that is happening in our journals.
It's atrocious, and the Wall Street Journal should not exist, in my opinion. That it's too far. Anyone involved in these pieces should be gone. Anyone who greenlit this stuff should be gone.
Yeah.
But they'll get promoted. They'll be, the next up and coming journalist, whatever, for sure. But it's disgusting. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it is just disgusting. Yeah, exactly. Straight from Nazi Germany. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I just saw Saul says the editor was out with Rona. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's interesting. Okay, so the other side of that I have just been thinking about so much, because I really am trying to understand how on the same day that the ICJ came out with their warning, first of all, saying that it is very likely that Israel is committing a genocide and they would be expected to be monitored for the next month and come back and show that they have been making all efforts to reduce civilian casualties, that there is a real threat of starvation and disease that's going to be even worse than the direct slaughter of all these people. On that same day, I think Israel killed like 200 people. It's been about 200 a day since then. They are still gleefully saying there will be no two-state solution, that we will only rest until the final solution, I think was the latest thing that Netanyahu said. Like they are, and this 72 Virgin channel, that was just, I think, taken down, but they finally admitted was part of the IDF.
And what that was, if people didn't know, and I didn't know about this, Lila brought this to my attention, but 72 Virgins was a channel that showed all this gleeful killing of Palestinians and, taking their land. And it was, disgusting.
Like
and they just, Israel disowned it and said it wasn't part of, they weren't behind it. And it was revealed that they were behind this website the entire time. It was an IDF faction or whatever.
So. Yeah. It's so according to Israeli publication Haaretz, the IDF has been operating an unofficial psychological warfare Telegram channel called 72 Virgins Uncensored that regularly dehumanize the people of Gaza. And then, there's lots of running film on it. It's horrifying. And they are just, and it's the same, like that, the whole, what was it, like 4 hours of South Africa presenting the case about Israel was basically just using the words of the people in power, right? And how they were dehumanizing and talking about basically ethnic cleansing and genocide using those words. So,
right. And, this is where our media comes into play. US media and the UK media, the two biggest funders of all this mess, didn't show the African case at the ICJ, and they showed the Israeli defense.
Yeah.
I mean, how clear cut is the propaganda when you won't show one side of a legal case?
Yeah, that, I mean, and like it's just so shameless the way they are trying to construct this. And it isn't working. But so I just kept, what I was trying to wrestle with, and I am going down so many different conspiracy thoughts in my head, but is why is Israel and the IDF, why are they being so outrageously in everyone's face about the genocide they're committing? Like, they're going to be the pariahs they are of the whole world soon, if they're not already.
Yeah. So my quick answer to that is so they can get away with as much as possible quickly, because the second they concede a little bit,
right,
then they need to take actions to stop the destruction, and they want to make Gaza unlivable, period. And if they deny it initially and then cede something down the road, it gives them cover down the road to be doing the right thing now, at least, or whatever. But if they get on that path now, they can't commit as much destruction and all the atrocities they want to.
Okay. So, I mean, I agree with you that that's why they are committing genocide, and that's why they're destroying Gaza. That's the whole plan. That's what they're going to do. But I think my question is, why are they advertising it? Like, why are they doing it in everybody's face? Why are they videotaping it? Why aren't they disciplining their soldiers who are, videotaping themselves blowing up a university or rolling over people who are seeking, safety with their trucks and everything? And so that is what sort of got me down this road of the sort of like anti-Semitism industrial complex, where I'm wondering if in their minds, because the necessity of Israel is because of anti-Semitism. We wouldn't need Israel. That's the whole case. Jewish people need a place where they can always be safe, where they can always come no matter what. And this, what they are doing, is only increasing anti-Semitism around the world.
Right. They're exponentially less safe. Israelis in America are exponentially less safe. The world is less safe because we're closer to,
which is giving more of a reason for Israel to have to exist.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I agree, but I think part of it is that their own culture, like 60% don't want aid to Palestinians, something like that. Like they're so indoctrinated into thinking, and the government has indoctrinated their own people. I mean, it's right wing. Like Netanyahu was right wing, but then he
it's like blaming everything bad on Trump. It's like, nah, that's who we've been for a really long time. He just ripped the Band-Aid off. Like, Israel's a settler colonial project it's deeply racist, right? So like, this is sort of like the culmination of 75 years of a Zionist project.
I think so. And I think part of it, though, is that the government running Israel now has gotten so extreme. Netanyahu was going to lose his election. And so he barely won his last election by embracing the farthest right extremist people in his country. And they've all been part of indoctrinating their own people. So, part of it is actual blindness to how the world is seeing them a little bit. I mean, I don't think they entirely are unaware.
I definitely think things changed after October 7th. I mean, then it went like, I think 2% of Israelis, when they're polled, say that they think there should be less violence against, Palestinians. But before that, I don't know what the numbers were before that. I think, just like 9/11, right after 9/11, a lot of people were like blood.
Yeah, you want
thirsty, right? But again, I think my point is more like, why are they stoking the flames at this level of showing how sick and depraved and bloodthirsty they are, and using like truly like Nazi language? And I do, I went back and I had seen this interview before, but I went back and read the transcript of it. It's sorry, I had to write everything down because I knew I was gonna have many shots before we
Notes?
got
You're
to the part.
cheating.
I know. Okay, so Tony Greenstein, who's an activist and blogger, a veteran of the Palestinian Solidarity Movement in the UK, had a book out, I think it was 2 years ago, called Zionism During the Holocaust: The Weaponization of Memory in the Service of State and Nation. And he details in it how, obviously, Zionism started before Nazi Germany came around, but they used that to their benefit, so much so that they, Ben Gurion, who became the first leader of Israel, fought against the saving of 10,000 children who the UK said they would take because they could not get them to go to Palestine. And if he could not use the threat of death and extermination camps to help create an Israeli state, he would rather have them die and say, look, that's what happens when people don't come to Israel.
Interesting. Yeah, I see your point on that. I mean, it's kind of like saving an issue for the election in a sense, you know, like.
You know what? That's exactly what it is. That's why we're never going to solve Roe v. Wade, and Republicans are never going to solve the border issue, right? Because they want to be able to use it. But it's just so you guys don't all think that I'm crazy. And it's a lot. I won't read all of it, but I put up a little bit here. So in his book, he is talking about how in the early 1940s, Zionists not only were not bothered about the Holocaust, they actively tried to stop anyone who wanted to provide a refuge from doing so. The Zionist logic was that where there are Jews, there is anti-Semitism. Jews cause anti-Semitism because they are living in the countries of other people. In the words of a novelist, A.B. Yehoshua, they are guests in other people's hotels, and of course they've outstayed their welcome. Transplanting Jews from Nazi-occupied Europe to America or Britain would not solve the problem. It would simply recreate anti-Semitism in another place. So you had to be cruel to be kind and say the only place of settlement was Palestine. I just think, I don't know. I'm trying to understand why Israel is being so brazen in the way they are destroying Gaza. I agree with you. I think, of course, they're trying to get rid of as many Palestinians as possible.
Right. The question is, how do they benefit from being so perceived as evil in their?
Yeah, like Russia's not doing that. Right? Russia doesn't have its soldiers like blatantly showing their war crimes. Okay, sorry. I just want to see, because I know there was some other thing. I know we don't have to go through the whole thing, but there's a lot of citations in there. And what I do think is interesting is back here in the States, AIPAC has now, I think they've raised $90 million since October 7th. And they are using huge amounts of that money to target any politician who is pro ceasefire, any candidates. And at the same time, many AIPAC funded Democrats are working on a new security supplemental, which includes a Biden proposal to waive congressional oversight of $3.5 million in military aid to Israel. So it is sort of this, like, as you say, anti-Semitism is growing. And we know now the ADL is considering, I think, like they said there's like a 300% rise or something in anti-Semitism. Every time they do that, they get more money. AIPAC gets more money. But what they didn't,
And obviously we've shown this before, but their rise in anti-Semitism up to this point has been largely due to them changing how they characterize something as anti-Semitic, and a gathering of pro-Palestine people is anti-Semitic according to the ADL.
Yeah. So any pro-Palestine or ceasefire march is considered an act of anti-Semitism.
Saying Palestine should be free from the river to the sea is now an anti-Semitic statement.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people have been taught that for a long time. But the mere act of calling for a ceasefire is anti-Semitic. You know, So I just went for the first time. The ADL is counting pro-Palestinian rallies that do not feature overt hostility towards Jews in its count of anti-Semitic incidents. The ADL released a report today claiming to find 3,283 incidents of anti-Semitism, but roughly 1,300 of these, or 40%, appear to be rallies featuring anti-Zionist chants and slogans that were never counted as anti-Semitism before.
Right.
And what that does also, it boosts their funding.
But what it also does, when our government is so clearly and openly beholden to Israel, while so many people are suffering here,
yeah,
it brings out the worst of the right, left, whatever. The worst people in society now have a scapegoat that on some level is justifiable. The scapegoat is, the country is, our government giving all this money instead of aid to our own people is. Doesn't mean you should ever blame someone from Israel. That's ridiculous. But it will actually increase real, tangible acts of anti-Semitism in this country, unlike these false claims, which are just people calling for literal peace.
Yeah, I mean, that is yeah, exactly. I mean, real anti-Semitism, I see it, I do see it from people on the left a bit who are talking about, Jews owning the media or Jews wanting their war and, conflating. And this has been another project of Zionists, but conflating Zionism with Judaism, when we know that most Zionists aren't even Jewish. They're, fundamentalist Christians, honestly. But that conflation works well for the state of Israel, and it works horribly for Jews around the world. So,
yep. And, Pelosi, I want to show the clip of Pelosi because it's astonishing to me how beholden we are to Israel as a country. It really is a truth that our government is largely both scared of all the PACs that we allow to exist, that no other country can have a PAC like AIPAC or what's the other one?
The Democratic for Democratic. Oh my God, DFI.
So anyway, but J Street, AIPAC.
Yeah.
Foreign countries have to register as lobbyists and whatever, but these groups have exceptions, and our government really does take a lot of fucking money from Israel.
According to one study that I have seen, 70% of people in our country, Jewish people in our country, voted Democratic.
Sorry, turn your volume up here, folks.
So that is a very important point in terms of our connection. I have said to people when they ask me, if this Capitol crumbled to the ground, the one thing that would remain is our commitment to our aid, and I don't even call it aid, our cooperation with Israel. Because that's fundamental to who we are. That's why I'm so delighted to be here.
So you're going to offer Paul, your husband, as the goy of Shabbat like your dad was?
Ugh, gross. Yeah, and who's that Republican Congressman, Brian Mast, who shows up in his IDF uniform? And then he says, well, Rashida Tlaib has a Palestinian flag. Well, one is like IDF, it's military, and one is her heritage. Like, that's very different, which is why when they talk about like, well, everybody's Hamas, well, everybody in Israel's IDF. Like, how do you get labeled a terrorist? What do you have to do to be labeled a terrorist?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we've seen Fetterman waving the Israeli flag on top of it. Like, he's going through some serious mental illness, for one. But he's on top of his building, flaunting his support for Israel, waving the flag for like hours. Like, the same people don't do that. There's something going on there, honestly, like sincerely. But his own election, he didn't take money to support Israel. He took money to not support Palestine, essentially. Like, that's him. And so you've got the Biden administration now taking a hit clearly publicly for supporting Israel. And they've got his advisors talking to Fetterman on how to boost relations with the Muslim support and Arab support he's losing. Like, That's a Democratic consultant for you. They're pointing him towards Fetterman to see how to do things.
I mean, it's so ridiculous. And yet, reflect this on, I did see that also. And I bet that JFK was hoping to force, it was the precursor, I think, to AIPAC, but to be labeled as, what's it called? What did they get all the people who were on Trump's staff for? Agents of another country. What's that called?
Foreign
Everybody.
agents.
Oh, yeah. And right after that was when he was killed. So anyway, yeah, it's a very strange dynamic. Clearly, it benefits the U.S. to have Israel there as an outpost. And partly I think it's just like a racist colonial idea of like having civilized people in the Middle East. But I think also a lot of it has to do with the Suez Canal and, access to the sea and shipping and trade. But whatever it is, it's disgusting, especially, as our country is falling apart, where people can't afford rent, where they don't have health care, where everybody's being reinfected with a, contagious virus several times a year, where, the fact that that is what people are focused on who are in power is,
It's
it just shows you how much they.
Well, we do have the 2024 section coming, but and this almost feels like minimizing it. But one good thing is that the boycotts and protesting are hurting some of the big businesses, which, look, it's sort of vindictive, like, Starbucks is taking a hit, haha, or something. But it's actually more than that, because maybe like they have the ear of politicians and we don't. So when these big businesses take a hit, it's a win. So we've seen Starbucks closing in a lot of places. McDonald's just came out and said that they're blaming the war for missing their sales targets.
I think Pizza Hut also has something going on where they're feeling the hit, where their profits are going down because I don't know if it's because they have places in Israel or because they were donating food to IDF soldiers on the ground. But those, and I saw Japan. I know we had so many graphics that we had to get rid of some. And but I know Japan, what did they do? They just stopped their contracts with one of Israel's weapons company. It's going to take a financial hit to make anybody change their mind, because nobody has a heart or a soul or cares. Nobody in power cares. But when their donors feel the hit, that is what will make a change. So that is the way the people power comes into play.
That's what we got for now until we actually wreck some people.